What's going on, everybody? This is Island Hopper TV podcast, and today I want to talk about being alone when you're traveling, loneliness, and how I deal with loneliness or being alone. This kind of comes about because I have a friend who's from Asia but lives in Paris, and they were saying they feel lost, and I was saying, well, maybe you need a change of scenery, maybe you need a new job. And they said, yeah, but the problem with that is I'll have to move to a new place and start all over again and meet people. And the first thing I thought to myself was, oh, yeah, that's not a good thing. And then I realized everywhere I go, pretty much I'm alone. Sometimes I have a cameraman with me. He's my best friend from high school, but he doesn't travel with me very often. In fact, this was the first time in the last 3 years he traveled with me for 2 months. So most of the time I'm traveling alone and I'm always alone. And, if I'm around people, that's great. So I wanted to touch on this subject because I have a lot of experience with it, especially being that I've been traveling solo for over 10 years now, about 14 years, right? So when I was in my 20s, this was really hard. I didn't like eating alone. I didn't like being seen alone, especially in social events. I would always feel weird if I was alone. So I always had to be around people. You could say I was codependent. So how did I evolve to this person who doesn't really mind it at all, in fact, embracing it and likes it? So the things that you have to know about, that this kind of comes up when you solo travel, right? Eating alone, walking around alone without any connection, no one to talk to, no one to kind of support you, no one to really build you up, no one to argue with, no one to get your mind off all the other things because sometimes you can be in your own head, right? So how do you mentally push through it? I mean, this is stuff that first time solo travelers have to deal with. Digital nomads. I consider myself a digital nomad because I travel full time. I live out of a suitcase and a backpack. I have a house, but someone lives in it and they rent it from me. So I can't even go back there if I wanted to. So this episode is really for people who are thinking about becoming digital nomads and doing the solo thing. Of course, you'll have friends along the way, but most of the time you're going to be spending it alone. Even if you don't want to travel or you want to live in a new place, this is also going to apply to you because it's all about loneliness and what I've done to handle loneliness and how I accepted it and how I actually have found it to be kind of a nice thing. So I've been to many places around the world. I've been to beautiful places and I've been in those experiences where I did feel alone. So, I mean, I know what it's like to be alone. Just because I've gotten to a point where I'm okay with it now doesn't mean I haven't been in situations where I was like, okay, man, the silence. This is silent. I need someone to talk to. I need someone to support me, someone to carry me through the hard times, right? So imagine you're sitting in a restaurant alone in Bangkok or Paris, and instead of feeling sad about it, you're happy about it. That's where we're trying to get you, right? Instead of walking through a crowded street feeling anxious or invisible, you feel like, hey, this is awesome. I'm happy to be here. And we're going to talk about how to get yourself to that point. So no one talks about this when you're doing solo travel. That's why I'm doing this. I mean, no one talks about the fact that you're not going to see familiar faces. I mean, in Asia, there's many places I've been all across China. I mean, we're the only people that look like me. No, there's not even really people that look like me in some places, right? And they don't even speak the same language. And that's kind of like, once you get to that point where that's like fun and you embrace that, that's when it becomes, a more deep connection for you. And that's when it becomes more of a deeper travel experience, right? The language barrier, no one that looks like you, no familiar faces, no routine, constant movement, all that stuff kind of adds up. And then, you're looking at the news and stuff and it can really kind of slow you down. And so let's talk about how you get to this point. So things that helped me was just accepting it instead of trying to feel bad about it or arguing with it or just going back and forth about why you're not with somebody. Are you alone? Accept it. You accept it. Okay. So instead of just letting it bother you, you say, hey, okay, this is happening for a reason. I'm here. Let's accept it. That's the first thing. Just accept it. Right. I know that you're in your mind. You're like, yeah, but I don't want to accept it. It doesn't feel right. But the more you have those thoughts, the more you're fighting it. Right. So creating small routines, okay? One of the things that helps me stay active is I like to get a cup of coffee in the morning. Actually, my routine in the morning isn't just go straight to the cafe. It depends on the city that I'm in, but sometimes I'll go to the gym, the sauna, before I even start a cup of coffee or looking at the computer, but I like to get into the computer. I like to have things going on in cyberspace, whether it be trading stocks, whether it be writing a book, whether it be having some sort of online business that I'm building. You don't necessarily have to be profitable in the beginning. You're just something you're working on online, whether it's a vlog, a blog, a store, some sort of trade deal, some sort of education thing that you're doing, some sort of online class, something like that. I think having that really puts you in like a meditative state, a cup of coffee, you dial it in, and that puts you in a more calm space, okay? Now, as far as like when you come out of that, you might be a little bit like, oh, I'm coming out of cyberspace, so I could feel a little bit, kind of foggy or weird. Talk to strangers, get the conversation going, but smile, okay? Get in the habit of smiling. Look at yourself in the mirror and smile and see how you look when you smile. I mean, I think everyone's going to be judgmental of themselves, how they look. So don't let that thought stop you from smiling. Don't be like, oh, I don't have an attractive smile or whatever. If you're someone who's got nice teeth or teeth that you like, use your teeth. Ask other people what they think. What smile works best on you. Most people will tell you this is your best side. This is this. Some people, if maybe you don't want to smile with all your teeth, maybe you'll be like, I'm someone who doesn't think I have great teeth, but people said that I should have, I should smile with my teeth more open. Or some people have said even close my mouth. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, a genuine smile, or like really feel the smile. Like be around people that you just want to smile at, especially like when you walk in. Hello, ma'am. How are you? Hello, sir. How are you? Be friendly, right? That's what it's coming down to. Friendly with a smile. So talking to strangers can help, like find something that you do that's kind of fun, that breaks the ice. For me, I say funny words, like, I'll say something funny. I have little like one-liners that I just kind of come up with off the top of my head. I mean, I'll just give you an example. When I arrive in Ireland, I said, hey, can you call God and tell him to turn on the sun? Just something corny, just something funny like that. It usually throws people for a loop. I mean, I'm pretty good at doing those things. I'm not saying everyone's going to do it. But those little things right there, just kind of icebreakers. It doesn't always have to be a, hey, how are you? Hi, how are you? Hi, hello, hello, hello. Have a little bit of creativity in it. You can use AI to get more creative, and, watch other people who do it and how they break the ice, and then learn from them, and then kind of develop your own personality that makes it fun to be around you. Just being fun, right? Lighthearted. Stay in places longer. Don't be so antsy or giddy. I used to do this all the time. I'd go to a place for like 1 or 2 days or 3 days max, and then I was ready on to the next, and I'd do the same thing, and I was just constantly traveling. Especially when I was young, I couldn't stay in one place for longer than like 2 or 3 days. I was constantly traveling. As I got older, I started staying in places like Bangkok for 3 weeks. I started staying in places like Singapore for 3 weeks, Kuala Lumpur for 3 weeks or 2 weeks. Like you don't have to always move at such a high pace. So it's kind of slowing down a little bit and getting more familiar. And then what ends up happening is you kind of make friends in each one of those places. Now, I'm not saying they're going to become your best friends, but you kind of pick up acquaintances in 1 or 2 of the spots out of 10. Like, if you go to 10 places, maybe 1 or 2 places, you might find someone that you want to go back and visit again, right? Whether it be, in my case, whether it be a friend, a male, or a lady that I'm interested in, as a girlfriend or something like that, okay? So another thing that has helped me, at least, is just being a content creator. Like when I'm out in these places, I got something else to think about other than just being a tourist. I'm also taking pictures or videos, right? I'm not saying that everyone's got to do that, but maybe you could, I don't know, it could be something as easy as just like being a Google guide. Like you can upload pictures onto Google, take a picture and review the place. You could do it on TripAdvisor. You could do it on trip.com. I'm just saying, like, having those kind of things where you're like building some sort of like status, right? I found that to be fun. I know of course, it sounds like it's like a vanity metrics, but it's something to distract you from your own thoughts, right? It's like playing a video game. Like, why would you play a video game? It's to, overcome boredom or something, or have a book, or have a book that you're writing. All of this stuff is things that you can add to your ideas. I mean, you can make a whole list based on what ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Claude or whatever AI you're using. I mean, you could say like 20 ways to overcome loneliness and be productive at the same time, right? That's like, I mean, there's 20 ideas right there, and maybe you'll feel overwhelmed and you'll be like, wow, I could do two or three of these pretty easily, right? Um, the next thing would be like staying in social accommodations. You could stay in a place like a hostel or a co-living space. For me, I like to stay at hotels that have bars. And when I'm feeling lonely or I want to have a little bit of excitement in my life, I'll just go down to the bar or the pub. And, as a man, for me, it's easy to go into pubs and there'll be other single men who are, getting off work or whatever. And they'll be chatty. If I wanted to be chatty, I can. Sometimes I'll be in there for an hour and I won't say a single word to any of them. And then all of a sudden we'll start talking for the next hour or two. Okay, so those kind of social settings, having one or two beers, in my opinion, or a glass of wine, it's not going to hurt. I mean, those are icebreakers, right? If you're really looking to be social, you can also do walking tours or day trips or food tours. On those tours, you don't have to go in there like thinking, oh man, I need to make friends with these people and then get in there and be like, oh, I don't like any of these people. Just go in there and be yourself. Just be there and go along for it. Don't feel like you have to put on a performance or have to be likable or anything, because just go with the flow. Let it come to you. Let it develop. Just you're there because you want to try food. You're there because you want to walk around the city and you just want to have a guide to show you, right? These kind of things are social. You're not going to be the only one there, but someone will say something. You might ask a question. Something will pique an interest. Someone will say something that you're also interested in, and then you'll make a comment to them, and then you might start talking to them. Who knows? You might have more in common with them. People do like to use apps. They use dating apps. They use things like Bumble. They use Hinge or whatever apps. I mean, people have Bumble for friends. I'm not saying that that's necessarily what you want to do, but people do that. They have couch surfing events. I've never gone to one, but I know that people do. Take classes. Like people will go to cooking classes. They'll go to surfing classes. They'll go to fitness classes, yoga, language classes. These are things that people can do. I don't necessarily do it, but I could see how people would actually benefit from doing that, or even going to like a church. I've actually been in places across Thailand and stuff where people would just go volunteer at the dog adoption orphanage or a children's orphanage or whatever. I mean, the old people's home. Who knows what people are doing for 5013C or nonprofit, but you can volunteer. I've seen people volunteer at farms. They used to do this thing called woofing in Hawaii, where people wouldn't make a lot of money, but they would just pick fruit off the trees or macadamia nuts off the trees, and they got paid a little bit for doing it. Um, the big thing though that has probably helped me is going back to that building familiar spots. Familiar spots that I spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia, and the one route that I seem to do the most is basically the Bangkok to Singapore route. And that allows me forward progress, and then I can just kind of reroute like a boomerang back up again. And what that basically is Bangkok to Hua Hin, Hua Hin to like Chumphon or Phuket, whichever one I want to stop at, to Krabi. From Krabi down to maybe Koh Lipe or some of the other islands, or just down to Penang in Malaysia. From Penang, I go to Kuala Lumpur, stay a few days in Kuala Lumpur, and then from Kuala Lumpur, I'll maybe go to Malacca, maybe I'll go to JB, or I'll just go down to Singapore, stay for 10 days, and then I'll just go fly back up to Bangkok again and repeat. Another route that I've been doing, and I've done a few different routes, I should probably share more of my routes because a lot of these routes are, handpicked by me. I like experience them, but that's like, I'm going more into routes now. Like that's kind of my thing is like, they call them like trails. Like for example, the hippie trail of the old days, which went through like Kathmandu in India, all the way through Myanmar. And some of that's closed now, but like I'm building my own trails, my own like routes. Like I said, I mean, I'm not the only one who's ever done the Bangkok to Singapore trail or the route, but I'm one who actually does do that route, and I don't follow anyone's real trail necessarily. I kind of pave my own way with it. But a route that I've done in China, I've got a whole China route that went from Hong Kong to Shenzhen to Guangzhou to Chongqing to Chengdu, Xi'an, where the terracotta soldiers are, up to Beijing, through to Shanghai, down to Hangzhou, and then back again to Shenzhen. I could stop in Xiamen if I wanted to. I mean, I could go all the way down to Kunming, down in Yunnan. I could go to Harbin. I mean, there's so many different routes that I could take around the world. I've done the Australia route, which usually begins in Perth. And from Perth, you could go to Adelaide, or you could just go straight to Melbourne. And from Melbourne, you could kind of take a car or a private bus or whatever up to Sydney. You could go from Sydney all the way to Gold Coast or Brisbane, stopping at places like Port Macquarie, Byron Bay, going up to Cairns all the way, and then maybe even crossing over to Darwin. I mean, it just depends on what routes you want to do. Do you want to do Australia? Do you want to do Europe? I've got a whole Europe route. I've got several different Europe routes. It's like, do you want to go east or west? But the point is, building those makes you feel more comfortable. So even though you're not in your hometown of Boston or New York or London or Chicago, wherever you're from, me, I'm from Phoenix, those are the things that have really helped me become more at peace with it. I even in Singapore, for example, I've got certain parts in Singapore that I'll stay. Sometimes I'll stay in Novena. Sometimes I'll stay in Ju Chit area around Katong or Kalong and ride my bikes and stuff like that. Sometimes I'll stay around the Keys. In Bangkok, sometimes I'll stay around Sukhumvit 22, or I'll stay around Sukhumvit Soi 11, or I'll go to Tong Lor. I mean, each area you're going to build like a local vibe to it, and then after you've gone to your local spots a few times, you've eaten at your favorite restaurants, you've gone to your cafes for 10 days, you bounce, you go to the next place. These are all things that I know I'm spitballing off the top of my head, kind of talking fast, but it's like that's the direction, that's the trajectory you're going to maybe go. Okay. I'm not going to say you have to copy me, but everyone's going to have their own way that they do it. But for me, this is what works. And that's why I'm sharing my story, is because I do hear people, they're worried about loneliness. They're worried about traveling solo. They're worried about being alone. And I get it because I've been there. Okay. I've been that guy who was walking through the streets and being like, man, I'm all alone over here, man. This is stressful. Like, it's almost like you're like, am I going to have a breakdown, or am I like breaking through? Really, that's what's happening. When you're breaking down, you're breaking through. So when you're feeling those feelings, they're normal, they're natural, they happen to everybody. Just realize you're getting shaken up. And once you come out of that, you're going to come out stronger from it. So weather that storm, get through it, and then come out the other side stronger because of it. And then who knows, you can start passing on the information to others who are going through it. But just realize you're not the first one to go through that kind of stuff. Nothing's wrong with you. Everything's good. It's just you're going through a metamorphosis. You're going through a transformation phase where you're actually becoming more comfortable with being alone and being with yourself. And that's why you see so many old people always walking around by themselves. Sure, old people might play croquet or play cards or play poker, and that's good. I'm not saying you don't want to have friends and, social isn't good. I'm just saying you'll notice like a lot of old people have made friends with themselves, and that's kind of where you're going. You're going through that phase where you're getting more and more comfortable with being alone, and that's great. That's strength, right? That's wisdom, that's growth. So hopefully you guys are able to get some value out of this. We'll see you guys on the next one. Island Hopper TV.